Hello fans and friends, it's Cassie at My Thoughts Literally, back for another Tuesday video. I thought for this Tuesday I would give you guys a monthly recap. Because of my lackluster video uploading, there's no video representation of the books that I read this month because I didn't do any on the blog recaps for y'all. So I read a total of 9 books this August. My theme was historical fiction. So you can see these are some of the books that I read and reviewed, and I will just go through and list them and let you know some of my thoughts. So first, the ones that I don't have physical copies for. These are e-arcs mostly. So first is Dear Daughter by Elizabeth Little. This is an adult mystery. I received an e-arc from Random House, so thank you Random House for the opportunity to read and review. I was actually really surprised by how much I liked this book. It had an interesting mystery that was solvable but engaging, complex characters, and was a great little quick read, and I really enjoyed it. My next arc is Grace and the Guiltless, which is an e-arc I received from Capstone, and this one was young adult historical fiction set during the Old West about a girl who tries to avenge the deaths of her family members. And it started off really good, but I ended up not liking it very much at all. The plot was just all over the place. The beginning was really interesting, the characters were really interesting, but it just didn't capture my interest and sort of left it on a huge cliffhanger, and I resented it for it. So those are the 2 that I don't have visuals for. Next, I read a series, a full trilogy, which is the Something Strange and Deadly series by Susan Dennard. First book in the series is Something Strange and Deadly, and this one I didn't really love. I loved the world. This one takes place in Philadelphia in 1876. Zombies are basically wreaking havoc on the city, and the main character and a group of misfits sort of fight the zombies, and the plot was just all over the place. And while I loved the characters and the world, I just didn't like it as much as a lot of people seem to have. Second book in this series was A Darkness Strange and Lovely, and this one resolved so many of the problems in Something Strange and Deadly. It takes us to Paris, builds the world even more, spends a lot more time with the interesting characters, and actually surprised me with its mystery, which the first book didn't do at all. And then the final book in the trilogy was Strange and Ever After, and this one was fantastic. I loved this book. It was a thrilling conclusion to the trilogy. The feels in this book are out of control, and by the end of it, I actually really enjoyed this trilogy. It was totally worth my time. If you are into young adult historical fantasy or supernatural novels, I definitely check out these Something Strange and Deadly trilogy by Susan Dennard. So I also read an arc of Neverhome by Laird Hunt. This is adult historical fiction which takes place during the American Civil War and is about a woman who disguises herself as a man to go to war in place of her husband. And as the synopsis may lead you to believe, this book is all about how appearances can be deceiving. But nothing more was deceiving about this book than the density of its tiny little length. This book took me a very long time to read. I wasn't entirely sure I was liking it until it was almost over and I didn't want it to end. This was a great piece of historical fiction. I definitely recommend this to fans of the genre, especially if you like Civil War or war era literature. Oh, and this one, sorry, is from Little Brown. I got a physical copy at BEA, and I also received an e-ARC from NetGalley. Another one that is exactly the same, I received a physical copy of NetGalley and an e-ARC from the publisher, is Nest by Esther Ehrlich. And this one is from Random House, and it is a middle grade historical fiction set during 1972 about a young girl growing up on Cape Cod, and it's a coming of age story. It deals with a lot of deep family issues, some really heartbreaking stuff, super poignant writing, really, really great characters. I don't read a lot of middle grade, and I loved this book. It reminded me so much of those mid-century modern classics like To Kill a Mockingbird and The Heart is the Lonely Hunter, and one that I just read, which is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. It was also a lot like those middle grade novels that left you scarred as a child, like Bridge to Terabithia. The writing was fantastic. I definitely recommend this book. If you're going to give it to your children, however, I would suggest reading it first and being prepared to have conversations with them, because this book really handles a lot of difficult situations that you might need to talk to your kids about afterwards, but it's worth a read. Then I reviewed a book this month that I actually read in June, and that is Egg and Spoon by Gregory Maguire. This is historical fantasy set during Tsarist Russia. It's also a retelling of the Baba Yaga story and a little bit of The Prince and the Pauper. It's a really interesting, creative story. Gregory Maguire is the king of retellings, and it definitely has a lot of great elements of that, but it's also sort of fun and creative and definitely laugh out loud, interesting kind of book. If you like Gregory Maguire, I definitely suggest you check this one out. It's sort of young adult, middle grade-y, so it's not as difficult or hard to read as the Wicked trilogy, or the Wicked years. There's 4 books. But it was worth a read, and I really enjoyed it. The characters were great, the plot was great. I definitely liked this book. So I also read and reviewed 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This book was really interesting because I had watched a video from Ashley at Climb the Stacks. I'll link her video down below, but she was talking about literary fiction, and I used to read a lot of literary fiction. I used to read it almost exclusively. Now I try to read at least 1 book a month from that genre or that categorization, but I sort of realized that I unfairly assess my literary fiction similar to other fiction, like young adult fiction, and that's not really a fair comparison. So while this book doesn't have a lot of plot development, it does have great character development. It's very character driven, sort of interesting magical realism. I wanted a little bit more magic, but it was a good atmospheric read, and I enjoyed it a lot more when I thought about it in terms of its character driven plot rather than a action driven plot. And I also read Jackaby by William Ritter. This without a doubt was my favorite read of the month, one of my favorite reads of the year so far. I loved everything about this book. I think my review on Goodreads said all the stars to Jackaby. This was another fun, engaging, quick read that I just devoured. The world is fantastic. The characters are fantastic. It is young adult historical fantasy set during the 1890s, I believe. Yes, 1890s in New England, about a supernatural detective. So it's got a very Sherlock vibe going. It also has been described as having a Doctor Who vibe. It was fun, creative, I loved it. I hope there are more books about Jackaby. This is one of my favorite reads. And then finally, so far, I have decided to DNF Salt and Storm by Kendal Kupler. I got about halfway through it and it's just very slow. I'm not connecting with the MC. I just had to put it down. I've not had an interest to pick it back up, but this is an ARC that I also received at BEA, and I got an e-ARC from the publisher. This is from Little Brown Children's Division, and it's publishing at the end of this month, so I might pick it up and finish it once I finish my September reads, but right now I am sad to say I am DNFing Salt and Storm by Kendal Kupler. So that is it. Those are the 9 books I read and 10 books I reviewed. So what did you read in August? Leave me a comment with your thoughts, and I look forward to seeing you guys on Friday. Talk to you later. Bye!